What is up, YouTube? Zach here from Spearos Kitchen, and today I've got another breakdown tutorial of this yellow jack that I got out spearfishing off my kayak. This is actually the same day that I got that blackfin tuna that I did a breakdown tutorial for before, and I've actually got the clip of it, so I'll run that for you guys, and then we'll jump right into the cuts. All right, guys, before we jump into the cuts, I just want to emphasize this fish has been dry aged for roughly 7 to 8 days, and that this is how I break down a fish. This is not necessarily the best way or the only way to do it, but this is how I do it for what I'm going to make with it. So let's go ahead and jump into the cuts. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, pretty typical of most fish, is come in back here behind the pec fin. Now, because these collars are relatively small and you're not going to get a whole lot of meat out of this side, I'm going to cheat a little bit and come back. I'm not going to cut all the way up towards the head because I want to take that meat with the collar. So I'm going to come in a little bit behind where I usually would, and then come straight down and make that cut. So now you've got a little more meat. Yeah, it's not a lot, but you've got a little more meat that we're going to use on this collar. And then we're going to spin it around and then come in from the top side and just make a little cut to start to outline this fillet. Slide our knife right up towards the top, and then same thing coming down. Just trying to stay right on those backbones. And then once we get to about here, just go straight in, and we're going to come straight out. Just like that. All right, so then I'm going to flip it around, and we're going to come in through the tail here. This fish is kind of dry, so you got to kind of work with it a little bit. But basically, we're just going to make a cut, outlining it from back here right up to this way. And again, just staying right on those backbones. Just come all the way through. Then flip it back around, or even straight on, however you want to do it. But now we're going to start coming down and just working our fillet. Staying right on that backbone all the way down to the center. And if you're hung up here at all, just go ahead, if you need to, take out your serrated knife. This isn't a super sharp serrated knife. This is literally like a bread knife. And go ahead and just cut down right here if you need to release that. And then you're going to hit those pin bones. So there's a whole line of bones that run right down the center. You're going to hit those. Just want to easily go over those. And then when you get on the other side, that's when you want to angle your knife almost like down towards the bottom fillet. So you're making sure that we get all that meat on the inside as well. And for this one, I'm I'm going to go over the rib cage. I'm not actually going to take the ribs off this one. And we're just going to go right down. Continue down. To make sure we get as much as possible. And because we already outlined the bottom, we're good there. And that's going to leave you with this fillet. And there's not a whole lot left on these ribs here, but it is enough. I'm going to come in with some kitchen shears and just cut that off. I mean, that's almost nothing, but that'll go into a broth or something like that probably. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is take off this left collar right here. And if you can see right here, there's this little bone that comes down. And basically what you want to do is get your knife underneath that and then cut up towards the head. And then once you get up here, it's basically like just taking a fillet off. You're just going to go down towards the back and then cut out. But you have to get underneath this bone if you want to take these collars off. And again, this isn't the biggest yellowjack. I've shot yellowjacks upwards of almost 20 pounds before that have giant collars, and obviously you're going to get a lot of meat out of those. But these would definitely be a nice snack, and I do have some recipes up on the website that utilize some smaller collars like this that would go great with this yellowjack. So we're going to come in and just get right behind that bone and go right up towards the head. Just try to get as much behind as possible. And then go straight down. And that's going to come right off. So again, not a crazy amount of meat, but again, this will be marinated and baked or something like that, grilled, whatever you want to do. Not the most amount, but it'll do something. All right, so same deal on the other side. Sometimes on bigger fish, I will take the head off just so it'll sit a little bit nicer. But because this is such a small fish, it's really not affecting how I'm going to fillet this side. So we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to come in behind the pec fin. This time we're doing it from the top. I usually like to go behind this fin right here too. But we're just going to come down. And because this fish has been dry aged, it's a little bit tougher to get through the skin. And we're going to go down. And remember, I said I was going to cheat a little bit and not go all the way up towards the head because I want this collar just to have a little bit of extra meat on there. So we're going to leave that like that. And then come back in like we did on the first fillet. And just come right up that backbone. And then come all the way from that same incision all the way down. Oops. So we actually went a little bit too far there. But you can reset, come back in. And then just go right out of the tail. And then we're going to come back in, just do a quick outline down here so when we take the bottom half of the fillet off, it's a little bit easier. Flip it back around. Now we're going to start coming down. All the way down until you hit those pin bones. And then just go right through the pin bones. And we're going to go over the rib cage. We're not taking the ribs off with the fillet. And then just make sure when you get to this backbone that you kind of angle your knife down a little bit so you get some more of that meat. You're not going to get it all, but we're going to go back with a spoon. And I'll show you guys how to get everything out of here. And take those ribs off, and there's our second fillet. All right, so same thing as the other side. To remove this right collar, there's this little bone right here, and it's really just little on this fish because this isn't a big fish, but on a bigger fish, this will be harder to get off. But you're going to come in below that and just make sure you're cutting on the opposite side of that, and then come down to the backbone and then just cut straight out. And this is your other color. There's a little bit of bloodline on there that will take off. And this is going to be great, like I said, on the grill, baked. If you want to make like a soup or something like that with what we've got left here, this will be a great addition to some ramen, pho, something along those lines. All right, so now we've got this little rib cage right here that we're going to take off just the side. Just going to come in with some kitchen shears there. That's probably not going to work on a larger yellow jack. You might need a bigger serrated knife or something along those lines, but for one this size, that works perfect. And now we're just left with basically the backbone, our tail, and the head. And before we start getting into that stuff, I'm going to come in. There's not going to be a crazy amount of meat left on this frame, but I would like to maybe do a little something with it. It can go as a topper on different recipes or just something, but if you just come in here and scrape all this meat off, and doing this on one fish might not amount to much, but if you do this, I mean, if you go out and get 10, 20 fish and do this on every fish, it will certainly amount to a little bit more. And it's definitely some more tender meat than you would typically get, especially because this one's been dry aged for so long. And if you watched our tuna video, we got a little bit more on that one than we probably will on this. And that was a small tuna. That tuna was only about 8 pounds or so. So that is that side. We're going to flip it back over. Just come all the way up. This side's got a little bit more. What I'm imagining doing with this is maybe if you've got a sushi roll or some nigiri or something like that, just maybe marinating this in something light and just throwing it on top. So this is what we're left with. Again, not a crazy amount, but definitely not something that I want to waste. All right, guys, so the last thing we're going to do is just remove the head. And because this one is so small, typically on a bigger fish, I'd like to go in between the vertebrae right here. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. But basically that little slit in between the bigger parts of the vertebra, we're just going to go right through with the serrated. And this really isn't anything thick to cut through, but we're going to use this for some sort of fish stock. I might break this down just once more, just to make it more manageable for a pot. Right through there. And then come up and come down. And then this is what we're going to use for our stock. And then I'll show you guys what we're going to do with the rest of the stuff here in just a second. All right, guys, so the next thing we're going to do is take the 2 fillets that we have and just remove the skin, and we're actually going to save the skin. I've been experimenting with some basically crispy fish skins where you take the skin off, boil them for a little bit to get the extra meat and anything attached to the skin off, and then you're going to dry it out for a little bit in the oven and then fry it, and it ends up like a really good pork rind basically. So we're going to be saving that, but for this particular fillet, we're going to come right down, feel for those pin bones, and just come right down the center. And we want to go all the way down through the skin. It might take a couple tries here. When that skin dry ages, it kind of gets a little crispier, I guess, than it would otherwise. But now you got this nice skin, like I said, that we're going to use for some crispy fish skins. And then same thing on this side. Come right down the center. And then you're going to be left with that. And then I'll show you in just a second how to take the skin off. All right, so we're going to do the exact same thing on the other fillet. Just come right down the middle right here. And just go back. And like I said, it's probably going to take a couple tries unless you've got a very sharp knife. Because when you dry age these fish, that skin seems to get a lot tougher to cut through. And I like to take the skin just because when you do take it off, unless you've got a little bit longer knife, and this one wouldn't be too bad, but it seems like you can get a lot closer to the fillet. I'm going to hold on to that one and then do the same thing on this side. Just come down. It took us 4 tries. So if you watched our tuna video, I was going to try some stuff with the Bloodline. This one, I don't really think is significant enough to give it a go because there's the bones in here and there's not that much on there, so I'm not going to do anything with this, unfortunately. But maybe down the road I'll experiment and see what can be done. So this is actually going in. All right, guys, so now we're going to take off the skin off of the 4 separate fillets that we've got here. And to do that, first thing I like to do, you get that little piece off, is come cut back towards yourself just a little bit, just enough to get a hold of that skin down here. And because this is already dry aged for so long, it's kind of already falling apart a little bit. It's so tender. And I'm just going to go right down that skin right there. And we lost a couple pieces here. Because this is aged for so long, it's really starting to tenderize and come apart, which is ideally what we want, but not when you're trying to take the skin off. But this skin right here is going to crisp up into a really nice snack for us, so we are going to hold on to that as well. And then same thing with our other pieces. So cut back towards yourself just a little bit. Get a hold of that skin. And because, I mean, you saw how many tries it took us to cut through the skin, I don't think you're going to be able to cut through this as you go down the fillet. So that's one nice thing about dry aging. And again, I mean, this is already set up to be a really nice piece to crisp up there. So we're going to hold on to that. And then same thing with the belly. This belly has a little bit right here. Maybe I'll try to take off Honestly, I don't think that's hurting anything, so we'll just leave it. Same thing, cut back. Any of this that comes on, this is probably going to turn into some kind of spicy yellow jack roll or some kind of raw sushi concoction. And then come right down. Like that. Another nice piece of skin we're going to crisp up. And then our final piece here. Again, come in, cut back towards yourself. And then go right down. This one actually sounded, yep, we actually ripped the skin a little bit there, which I didn't think we'd be able to do. So sometimes this happens on fish that have relatively thin skin, like a mackerel or something like that, maybe even a tuna. You'll cut too far down and the skin will rip. But if that happens, we're just going to have to try to take it off as nicely as we can. So I'll probably come in, just make some long strokes with your knife kind of angled up just a tad bit. And that'll come right off. So now we've got our fillets. Not the prettiest, just because they do tend to come apart after they've dry aged for this length of time. Put some of these bits and pieces on the edges. I'm going to add that to what we scraped off the backbone. And this is going to make some kind of sushi concoction like I talked about. Alright guys, so this is what we are left with now. We have the fillets that we're going to do some sashimi, some different raw stuff with more than likely. We've got the little bits that we pulled off the backbone and the other little bits that came off the fillets here that we'll probably mix in to make something for the stuff that we're going to do with the fillets. We've got these little rib pieces here that there's not a whole lot there, but I think it would be good to throw in with our fish stock that we're going to make from the head and the fish frames. And then we've also got these two collars here that I think are going to pair great in some sort of soup, ramen, pho, something like that we're going to make out of this fish stock. And then lastly, we have our skin that this is one that I'm really looking forward to because I did a little bit of R&D for the website with the tuna that I recently got. And we made a crispy fish skin out of these. So I'm going to do something with those. Hopefully that turns into a recipe that I can put up for you guys. If you guys like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you would have done differently. If you're interested in submitting a recipe or even a breakdown tutorial, we do have links to that on the website as well, and we welcome that. So if you haven't checked out spearoskitchen.com, guys, definitely check it out because we've got a lot of recipes, hopefully a lot of breakdown tutorials in the future. We're starting to build that out as well, but we're really just getting started. So thank you guys, and I will see you on the next one.